there's a sense that what I hear the Global South saying with regard to global warming is that we want the OECD nations to be investing something like 1% of GDP in the project of transitioning to a green, clean energy economy and sharing those technologies. And that we're having a very different conversation in the North, in the OECD countries, which is all focused on cuts in emissions and actually making demands about what the Global South should do. And it feels like there's this complete disconnect. It really comes down to this question of what do we do with our wealth? And what I notice in our context in dealing with NGOs is it's almost as if we've been trained by the dominant ideology not to make demands about wealth. We make demands around the edges of it. I was really struck when I was here last time. Rebecca Henderson, who's a now professor at Harvard, was despairing about our ability to actually address global warming. She had gotten to the point where she thought we're just not going to do it. And I asked her if we were able to devote 45% of GDP, which is what we did, the US did during World War II, to the problem, could we solve it? She said, of course, absolutely no problem. That's completely doable. The fact that we're not even talking about that, we're not actually having a serious conversation about using national and international wealth to solve this problem, but instead having a conversation about a sort of a complex series of interventions to send the right signals to the markets and so on. I'm just curious about that. Why can't we have a conversation? Why can't even the NGOs be making demands about the use of our wealth to affect the outcomes that we want to affect? I'm struck by the silence about this.
There's been some conversation about effective use of government, which is not the same thing. I mean, you can get money to do big projects, collective projects, but it's not the same thing as trying to produce equity or redistributing wealth. That's not, that conversation is almost always one we avoid by saying growth will take care of it. If you grow more, then you don't have to give up anything. You'll just simply give up the new profits created to somebody else, but you're never going to have to talk about redistributing the wealth that we have. So that's a hard conversation here.
In this country, the question of redistribution is not just a question of economics and money. It's also a question of race. And in this country, you see the president, even now, with the healthcare thing, and Jimmy Carter's recent statement, you see this issue, it just keeps coming back. Why is that? Well, if you enslave a people for 300 years and you keep them under apartheid for 100 years, and then say, okay, you're free, you can vote, but we're not going to talk about redistribution of anything. It very powerfully raises this set of issues, which is just beneath the surface, particularly when those very same people have 40–50% unemployment, 20% HIV rates in many parts of the country, et cetera, et cetera. It's an explosive issue that's just there, and it's all mixed up. And I don't think we're going to address it by sort of looking at these things siloed. It's all mixed up, globally and domestically.